Hello, hello. Thanks for joining me live if you're here. It's good to be back. So just drop a message in the chat if you're on and you can hear me and see me all right. And today's video is about Ara Güler Istanbul, this great photo book that I've spoken about once before. I think I did a live stream about some new pickups, things I had recently bought, including zines, books, film, whatever. And I mentioned this book briefly in passing. This was before I actually ever traveled to Istanbul myself. And I spoke about how this was part of my inspiration that added onto the Alex Webb body of work from Istanbul, which was a huge book for me in terms of street photography, Istanbul. And then I had only recently discovered this shortly after. And the way I discovered it was through a friend of mine, Cheyenne Morrison. He actually introduced me to Ara Güler's work through his recommendation of the documentary on YouTube called Eye of Istanbul. So if you're not familiar with Ara Güler, he is a photographer who did a lot of his work in the mid-20th century between 1940 and 1980 or even later, largely in Istanbul. He had some international assignments as well. He's an Armenian-Turkish photographer, but he did some international work. And the majority of his work was largely documenting life in Istanbul during those years that I mentioned. And his work is great. I'm a big fan both of him as a street photographer, and he even did some portrait work and some other stuff. And he had a really interesting perspective, which is quite different to someone like Alex Webb, who was an outsider to Istanbul, and Ara Güler, as a native, had this really particular eye, and that's why they called him the Eye of Istanbul, who documented the changes throughout all those years, and we'll show you a little bit of that in the book soon. But yeah, if you're into black and white photography, you're into street photography, documentary stuff, this was a great discovery for me. So I want to thank Cheyenne for, number one, putting me onto the documentary. If you are curious after you watch this video, if you want something to watch later, I would recommend that documentary called The Eye of Istanbul. It's available on YouTube. It is, it's a paid documentary. I think it's only like a few bucks. I paid for it, watched it, well worth it. And it gives you a bit of an idea and a background of Ara Güler as a photographer, his personality. He's kind of like a bit of a fun-loving, playful guy, interesting to watch and to hear him speak in a few of the parts that you see in this documentary. There is a trailer if you want to check that out first. I've got a link in the description. But I'll play a little bit of this just so you get an idea.
Hatırlıyor musun çekilme anını? Tabii ki hatırlıyorum. O kadar aptal mıyım?
So this documentary was obviously made before he passed away, which was about 4 or 5 years ago now.
Ara Güler bence çağımızın filozoflarından.
Bir şey almak için ne kadar beklersiniz?
Ulan bir kelepçeden 1,5 saat bekledim. Hay Allah belanı versin. Muhabirimiz Ara Güler Sofya Loren'in yatak odasında. Şimdi ben nereye gideyim?
So yeah, he shot Sophia Loren. He was quite a high-profile photographer among his peers, but a lot of today's street photographers and people who, are aware of some of the more popular Magnum photographers aren't really aware of Ara Güler's work. So I think he's well worth discovering if he's not on your radar. And I think this book is an excellent way for you to discover his work. There might be some other stuff you can find out there, but yeah, today I'm going to do the usual thing. I've got like all the cameras set up, the overhead here, so we're going to be able to show you the book on the overhead view as usual and go through it. I'll just wake up this camera. But yeah, let's get straight into the book. Okay. And thanks, by the way, anyone who's in the chat. Hayden. Dusty Sprockets. Thanks, man. And Abe, thanks for the recommendations. We'll definitely watch the documentary later. Yeah, great. Definitely recommend that documentary. So he was actually quite multi-talented in the way he shot. A lot of people know him for his super wide angle work. He was one of these photographers who used, I think, like a 21 mil or something like that, super angulon lens. But he also was really great at using a telephoto and compressing environments with foreground, midground, background kind of setups like this. But yeah, largely it's black and white work that he was known for. I think he did shoot a bit of color. He had some assignments maybe that he was sent on to Africa or somewhere like that. But yeah, he's largely known for his black and white work, and largely known for the stuff he did covering Istanbul, especially between the 50s and 80s. And the city was going through a lot of change during those times. And as a native, you know, he has this unique perspective and an empathy for the working class, especially. You'll notice that in a lot of his photos, he covers the working class people of Istanbul. And there you go, with shots like this, you know, you can see he's used this telephoto lens to really compress and bring in the mosque in the background into this incredible silhouette that pops out and kind of looks a lot larger than it would if he was shooting a wide angle, but then has this great ability to layer throughout his photographs that you'll notice throughout this book and other photos where you have elements in, you know, mid, foreground, background, just multi-layered work like that. And there's a great essay here at the opening of the book by Orhan Pamuk, who is actually quite a well-known author, winner of a Nobel Prize, I think the first Turkish winner of a Nobel Prize. He's actually a bit of a photographer as well, and he's, I think, an Istanbul native, and he did some photography covering the street lights or, you know, a few different things throughout Istanbul. So he also wrote, I think, the opening for Alex Webb's Istanbul, but yeah. I'll keep flipping through the book here, and just, again, these great multi-layered photos that just sort of have all this depth in them, all this detail. That's from 1954 with the Galata Bridge. Really well-known landmark in Istanbul. Even till today, it's not really that different. The buildings are a lot bigger and denser, but, you know, it's a very hustling and bustling city. And I'll talk a little bit about my trip there that eventuated after having discovered this book. Yeah, again, layering those aspects of the city with the workers and the fishermen in the boats there, and then the other side of the bank. And he tends to kind of feature those mosques in the photos that he takes throughout the city. And I don't know how he gets some of these aerial views. I'm really not sure, but yeah, they're pretty cool. Galata Bridge again. And the cool thing about this book, I think there's a map of Istanbul and where he may have taken the different photos. And they're kind of organized sectionally in that way, if you ever wanted to, you know, reference it. I found that quite interesting before traveling there myself. Sorry about that. I'm using the mirrorless camera today for the book view, which gives a lot better quality than what I was previously doing, which was using my phone. But it seems to want to go to sleep every now and then. And I'll find a way to fix it for next time. But I think every now and then I might just need to keep waking it up or triggering the autofocus. Yeah, and there's some great night work. He shot a bit of medium format, obviously, by the looks of this, but was mostly known for his 35mm work. And I wouldn't say he's the type of street photographer that you would traditionally think of when you think of those, you know, close-up shots of people and layering people from a closer vantage point per se. He likes to get a bit more of a macro view of things. And there you go, that super wide angle perspective as opposed to some of those telephoto ones with the market, I think it's the Egyptian market in Istanbul. And some beautiful shots taken in the snow. So yeah, I really love his work for his ability to layer and have all this dimensionality to the photos, this kind of raw, gritty feel to a lot of them, the working class people that you see in some of the portraits later on, especially, you know, simple shots like that. Just a lot of emotion, a lot of mood and feel, which is, I think, essential to a good photo. So that's in Üsküdar in 1960. Oh no, that's the overleaf shot. Yeah. This is one of his really well-known shots. Again, that really raw, gritty feel with lots of mood, both through the print and the weather on the day and the clouds, and just capturing this guy here in the foreground and the drama of it. Again, with that sweeping sense of layering, the background elements showing the silhouettes of the mosques with their minarets especially, which is something that when you travel to Istanbul, you'll see how grand and imposing they are on a lot of the viewpoints. So I'll just check some of the chat here. How's everyone been anyway? Hope you've all been well. Hope you've been shooting. And for me, looking at photo books like this is a huge inspiration that is just something different to looking at Instagram and photos online. There's something about it. And I find that when I'm about to go on a trip or something like that, I love looking through a photo book, especially if it is relevant to where I'm going or the type of photography that I think I want to do, because I think that's, at least for me, the best form of inspiration for my photography, which is probably, you know, followed by maybe movies and then seeing stuff online, maybe third. If you're wanting a new book to dig into, this might be it. What's the best place to find it? Well, I got my copy on Amazon because when I looked, that tends to be the cheapest place. I know a lot of people don't like buying their books through Amazon. I do it. I'm a cheapskate and I just want to get a good price and free shipping because I have Prime. But yeah, I have put an affiliate link to the book in Instagram. What do you call it? Amazon, sorry. And I think I paid roughly whatever this price is here. This is Australian dollars, so that's, you know, probably like $39 US, and regular retail price is higher according to that. And if you have Prime, you know, that includes shipping. So for me, that's where I got my copy. I put a link. It is an affiliate link, so if you buy it through this, I get like $1 or something as a commission, but it doesn't cost you anymore. So if you choose to use this link to buy the book, I appreciate it. Otherwise, yeah, shop around. Maybe you'll find it cheaper elsewhere, or even better, if you find it in a local bookstore and you can support a local bookstore, that would be even better. But, you know, it's probably not as common as many others. And yeah, let's continue flipping through as I go through some of these comments. Yeah, but I mean, some of these dramatic weather shots are just beautiful, almost take on like a surreal, dreamy look. And that damn camera is going to keep cutting out on me. Sorry, guys. When I did my tests earlier, this didn't happen. And that's usual for live streams. What can go wrong will go wrong. But luckily, there's a quick and easy fix for it. The fifth current Galata Bridge during Ottoman era fishermen on the bridge. New mosque is in the background. The fifth Galata Bridge is built by the Turkish construction company STFA. Yeah, interesting fact that I think I read maybe in this book or saw in the documentary. But yeah, I mean, just the way he captures silhouettes especially has this really surreal vibe to it. And I think he's really unique in that there's not many other photographers I can compare his style to, except for maybe Sergio Lorraine, my favorite photographer, and another person who shot a lot of black and white and was a little bit more introverted and not in your face with people, and would kind of get a little bit further back and get things like silhouettes and really focus on layers, and also shoot a lot vertically, which Ara Güler, I think, I don't know if he ever was aware of Sergio Lorraine's work, but I feel like that's the next photographer I can compare his work to. Or maybe, you know, Fan Ho or someone like that. But a lot of these guys worked around the same era in different corners of the world, interestingly. So that those big three, Ara Güler, Fan Ho, Sergio Lorraine, working throughout, you know, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever it was. You've got Hong Kong, you got Istanbul, and then Valparaiso, Chile, and places like that. Or, you know, Sergio also traveled to London and other places for his work. But yeah, there's some similarity between them, not only in the fact that they all shoot black and white, but just that raw emotion, that surreal kind of feeling to a lot of the photos. And there's so much beautiful detail when you see this book in person, and that film grain shows up, all the character, and yeah, it's wanting to focus on the left side there. Hey Jen, thanks for joining. Yeah, and like he even has this ability to capture those decisive moments, kind of a la Henri Cartier-Bresson jumps and whatever. Like there are elements of action and motion and capturing these fleeting moments as well. It's not all just slower paced stuff. Yeah, I'll just keep the book down here because focus is struggling a little bit. But yeah, let's not spoil too much of the book. Maybe I'll just flip and find maybe some portraits, because he did do a few portraits like this. This is quite interesting. So just locals, natives, again, kind of working class people. Again, that kind of super wide angle look with characters in the foreground and careful placement of other elements in the mid and background. Almost a little bit of a Sebastião Salgado feel to that one. Yeah, really beautiful stuff. So here we go, another great portrait that you'll probably see if you were to Google Ara Güler. So, you know, maybe these guys hanging out in a bar in 1959. Really cool. Inside of a hammam. Oh, we don't want to get censored. Demonetized. But yeah, beautiful shots around the main parts of Istanbul. The Galata Bridge is where he did a lot of his stuff. Eminönü, all these regions of Istanbul that are very recognizable. Oh, look at that. It cut out at a good time. So that's the book. That's Ara Güler's Istanbul. It's a good buy, I reckon, for 49 Australian dollars. 40-ish US dollars. It says there's 5 in stock at the moment on Amazon, but have a look around. Maybe you'd find it at Book Depository or stores like that. I haven't looked up if they have it, but I would highly recommend it while it's still in print. And if you haven't ever discovered Ara Güler's work. Just a few meters away from the previous bridge between Karaköy and Eminönü and completed in December 19. So this is the history of the bridge. Yeah. Galata Bridge is such a cool place. If anyone here has been to Istanbul or plans to travel there, it's a street photographer's dream, to be honest with you, because there's so much variety within the city. All these different regions give you a different feel. And I was going to even talk a little bit about how his work partially inspired mine. And yeah, I'll get Lightroom up in a moment and show that, but I'm just reading this comment from Abe. Been doing great. Had to postpone my trip to Lebanon for now. Booked it for the end of April. Thanks again for the inspiration. Yeah, no worries, man. I know you sent me a message about that, and it might be better to just wait a little bit, to be honest, because things are really, I mean, it's never going to be perfect conditions in Lebanon, but the currency and all that should still make it good for you when you're traveling, but there's a lot of instability, so I guess there's no rush. Hayden, I'm fine. Going on holiday next Thursday. Awesome. Where are you going? Unsure what film camera to take. I might take my Pentacon. Yeah, so I'm actually heading to Sydney tonight. Sarah and I are going to attend a wedding, not to shoot it. We're going as guests for a friend. And there probably won't be any new videos on the channel until maybe late next week. I get back on Monday-ish. But it just means a bit of a delay in releasing videos on the channel, but I have released a few videos almost weekly for the last month. So if you haven't caught up on some of the latest stuff on the channel, feel free to check it out. And in terms of going to Sydney, I was in the same predicament, Hayden, as what camera to take. And I'm actually thinking to not take any film cameras this trip because the weather's going to be bad, supposedly, according to the forecast. I'm running out of film. It's very expensive at the moment. I don't really have the money to spare. And also, you know, I'd have to deal with x-rays and all that because I don't even know if I'm going to get out and shoot, except maybe at the wedding or we'll see how the weather changes. But maybe I'll just take a digital camera. I'll take my Canon or something, my R6, because it's fairly light with a 35mm lens. And for really short weekend trips, you know, I think it works all right. Thanks for the book recommendation. Was planning on going to Turkey this summer. Do you still recommend I go even post-earthquake? Yeah, I think Istanbul wasn't really affected, you know, directly in any way. I mean, indirectly, there might be some effects on the economy and all that. But I would always recommend going to Istanbul. And even if something like that has happened, I think tourism really helps their economy and keeps the businesses going, because obviously if there's a natural drop from the locals in terms of supporting these businesses, the tourism probably helps. But I'm not an expert. I would just say that, yeah, Istanbul should be fine. And the earthquake was really far in the southeast of the country. So if you're not planning on traveling to those affected regions, you should be fine. And even if you were going to explore other parts of Turkey, like popular destinations like Cappadocia or the south coast, you also should be okay. Another book on the Galata Bridge, that's cool. Second, you want to see the cover again? Yeah. So it's a Thames and Hudson publication. And there's this photo on the back. Yeah, it's like a huge size, probably like 8 by 10, I would say. Great, have a good trip, man. Already ordered it. Beautiful. Looking forward to a new read. Recently got the Monocle book of photography, reportage from places less explored. Was a great read. Oh yeah, I'll have to check that out. Yeah, so I was going to talk a little bit about my own travels. If you guys are familiar with some of the videos on the channel, I released a vlog mid last year. So Sarah and I traveled to Lebanon, Turkey, Italy, Greece. We did a bit of a trip in mid 2022, and one of the destinations was Istanbul. So having looked at the work of Alex Webb for years and then discovering Ara Güler shortly beforehand, I really consumed a lot of their work before traveling there, and it might have affected my subconscious when I was shooting a little bit, in a good way, I think. So maybe let's have a look through some of the images that I shot in Istanbul. And if you haven't seen the video, I have it here. It's linked. Maybe it's not linked actually, but you can search it. Just search for Istanbul on the channel. But one thing before we look at the photos is I was going to mention that if you ever go there, there's also a cafe, Ara Güler's cafe. Like it's sort of themed around
coming to this place if you've never been here.
Him and his work, and it's centrally located. So if you're staying in Istanbul close to, you know, Taksim Square or Beyoğlu, any of the central areas, you should check out this cafe for sure. And you'll see large prints of his work there, and really cool vibe, really great prices on food if you're coming from overseas with foreign currency.
Yeah, it's my first time here, and I can easily say this place is huge.
Yeah, but I was just going to mention that as well. And if you want to see the vlog of the photography, there's that on the channel. But otherwise, yeah, let's look at some photos in Lightroom. And I know this is going on a bit of a tangent from Ara Güler, but I was just going to kind of say how much it inspired my work. I mean, if you look at the color stuff here, you wouldn't really see much similarity, but I think that it subconsciously affected my eye when I was shooting black and white in terms of what I composed. You know, looking at shots like, get my keyboard back. Sorry, guys. You know, like these, for example, where I would maybe subconsciously or intentionally think more about the backgrounds and about the layers, and including some of these landmark giveaways of location, showing that you're in Istanbul, like, you know, the mosques in the background and the great silhouette that they create, whether it's some 35mm stuff like this one in the top corner, or the medium format stuff I shot on the Pentax 645. But just thinking more about the mood, about the layering, and about the historical side of the city, which is something that Ara Güler really inspired me with, which is quite different to, you know, the work of Alex Webb, which focused much more on abstract shapes, colors, people, shadow, light, getting in a bit closer and having those more compressed layers, whereas Ara Güler's work would have these really expansive layers, going from something extremely far back in the background to really close in the foreground. And then, you know, some of that dramatic weather, for example, in this shot, which really reminded me a lot of what I had seen in this book. And it's maybe because it's shot on black and white film, has a similar aesthetic to it as well in some way or another. So I just want to give credit to Ara Güler's work for how it inspired me when traveling to Istanbul. And even though obviously it's not like directly mirroring his work. It just somehow blended into my style and my subconscious when I was shooting. And that's just something that happens in general with photography. But again, yeah, I mean, if you look at the color stuff, it's maybe a little bit different. It still retains my style, but with that same thematic sense of location of being in Istanbul. So yeah, I just wanted to give credit there and mention that, and how inspiring discovering his work was for me. And if you guys just want someone to discover, or you're going to travel to Istanbul, definitely check him out. It's really good stuff. So yeah, we'll start wrapping up soon. I just wanted to share that book and put it out there on your radar in case you're not familiar. And I'll just go through a few more questions and wrap things up. Ever shot on a Nikon FE? Yeah, for sure. That's one of my main cameras, and a camera that I've been using for a long time and I still use today. And I've done a review on it 7 years ago almost now. I first got that camera about 7-8 years ago. But yeah, great camera. My favorite SLR in terms of film SLRs. Justin, great recommendation. I definitely like to see more photography from different parts of the world. Yeah. And this is a lesser known place when it comes to looking at documentary and street photography. And did I use the glimmer glass when shooting digitally in Istanbul? Yeah, so I think with the X100V stuff, which there was a few of in this set actually. I'll go back to it. I would have used the glimmer glass. So for example, these are digital, these 4. A lot of the other ones are film, but I think this is digital here, here, X100V. And I did use the glimmer glass, and what you can see is, I might have taken it off with a few shots, but it just softens the highlights a bit, gives a bit of a bloom to the highlights, sort of a softer look. You can especially notice it in this top left shot with the backlight and that sunlight there. You wouldn't notice it as much in that. I might have taken it off for this sunset shot. But yeah, in these two, you can really see the effect of the glimmer glass. I think that's what I was using. It was either that or... yeah, it was glimmer glass actually. 49mm. And I've since sold the X100V, and I've explained why that happened in some previous live streams if you're interested. But it was a great camera. Nothing against the camera. Yeah. So that is Ara Güler Istanbul. Definitely worth checking out. Whether you get the book or not, maybe just check out some of his work on the internet. If you find like a dedication Instagram page, or his page on the Magnum website maybe, or some other collections or articles, documentaries, definitely check out the documentary I recommended, Eye of Istanbul. And yeah, I'll hope to share some more photo books and photographers in the future. I haven't bought as many photo books in this last few months, so yeah, I still have a bit of a backlog that I haven't shown on the channel yet, but yeah, I think I've covered a lot of my favorites. So if you are interested, check out the playlist just called Photo Books. So I have a whole playlist about photo books and books that I've shared, just to help you discover photography and to remind you of the advantages of looking at work in the form of photo books. I think it's beautiful. I think it's the best way to really enjoy photography, because it's just personal. You don't even have to go to a gallery and exhibition, which is great as well. But I think there's something intimate about looking at photos in a book and just flipping through the pages and taking your time and getting up close if you want to, and enjoying it in that way. So yeah, that was it. I hope you've all been well. There'll be probably another week or so until there's another release on the channel. And I just want to say thank you again to all the support, especially from all the regulars that I get on these live streams. I really appreciate it. You guys are what makes it worthwhile doing this. If it wasn't for you guys coming online, I just wouldn't be doing this. And if you're watching this post-stream, thank you as well. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you discovered work that you enjoy through this live stream, through me sharing Ara Güler's work, because it's really about just helping you discover new photographers, new photography, and just some of those masters, those legends that we should all, you know, learn from in some way or another. And whether or not you buy the book and whether or not you use my link, just check it out. So yeah, thanks again. I hope you're all going to have a good weekend coming up. I'll be in Sydney, and I'll chat to you next time. See you guys.